Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday night Co-Creators Convergence conversation. We are delighted that you're here with us on May 27th, 2021. Whether you are here in this present moment in our Zoom room, whether you are watching on Facebook Live on a number of different channels, or whether you are watching this recording at some other time in the future, although there is no other time, only the present moment. So you're with us here right now as well if you're watching a recording. My name is Bob Warner, and along with my wife, Noelle Marshall, we call ourselves Light Partners. And we are delighted that you're here this evening, and we are delighted to have Jane Sorbi of the White Eagle Lodge here to explain us this journey that we're on through global hypnosis, because I believe we are, and we need a guide through this time. So this is going to be a delicious conversation this evening, which will include dialogue after Jane has an opening prayer and some thoughts about our journey. Before we start, I'm going to ask Noelle to play a little 1.5 minute introduction, because a number of you might not be familiar with the Co-Creators Convergence, which has existed since 2013. So hold on to your hats. This is a very fast-paced explanation of what we've been up to for the last 8 years. Thank you, Noelle. So those of you that are new, please be a part of our community. As it said on one of those slides, we have a very active Facebook page, a website where we archive all of our calls back for the last 6 or 7 years, as well as a gathering, which we're very excited to announce that will be at White Eagle Lodge October 13 through 17 this year. We missed having a convergence sitting in circle together last year. We have been for the prior 7 years to that at Sunrise Ranch in Loveland, Colorado. And we're really excited about coming down to White Eagle Lodge this fall. So what a wonderful evening we're going to have with Jane Sorbi. Jane has been a very important part of Noelle and my life since 2012. I won't give you all the details of how we came to know each other and came to know about White Eagle Lodge, but it includes experimental aircraft and wolf sanctuaries and a lot of other things. But the course of the arc of the universe, of our universe, made it an imperative that we learn of White Eagle Lodge, which we did in 2012, and to meet Jane. Jane was born and educated in England and has a lifelong affiliation with the White Eagle Lodge, which is a universal spiritual path inclusive of all life. She's both a minister and is the spiritual counselor in her capacity as the mother of the White Eagle Lodge of the Americas, which is in Montgomery, Texas, just outside of Houston. Her particular love is healing and teaching spiritual science workshops at the retreat center there in Texas, where she also lives and works. And for those of you that have never visited White Eagle Lodge, whether you come to our convergence this year or any other time, Noelle and I claim it as one of the most, if not the most peaceful place of our journeys all over this planet that we're blessed to be at. It's 70 plus acres of absolute heaven, meticulously maintained by a core of volunteers. So if you're ever having a retreat, whether it's a personal retreat or whether it's a group, please consider talking to them. So this evening, Jane is going to open us with a little opening prayer and then help us understand the journey through global hypnosis. Because we've all been gifted with the return to Earth at this particular time of global initiation, which is an opportunity for an expansion of our awareness of light and of our consciousness. You don't have to go very far to see that we're in a hypnotic state on this planet, collectively. We're in the midst of this deep testing of humanity. It's a global hypnosis. Each of us have been given a chance to rise above it and to be swallowed up by it. So the influence of the seventh ray is very apparent. Jane will explain about that, I'm sure. And this is an unparalleled opportunity to bring the balance between the pull of the material world and the indwelling of spirit, which is all love. So with that, Jane, thank you so kindly for taking your time to be with us this evening and sharing. We're going to give the magic talking stick to you for opening blessings and conversation, and let us know how we can serve and all be a part of this dialogue tonight. Over to you, Jane.
Thank you so much, Bob and Noelle. In particular, thank you for asking me to come on. It's become, hasn't it, a rule of the day, it seems, to gather in groups, and we can gather in groups from all over the world effortlessly. And I'm sure that's part of all of this work that we're doing together, is that we can include people who can't be present in the physical. So it's a great gift. So thank you both for inviting me. Let's just come together, shall we? Just to center ourselves, just to bring ourselves into that quiet space, whether we've spent a day in an office or whether we've been around families and we've just got a quiet space now to be still. Just breathe in the light, beautiful, pure Christ light, which is all love. We thank the Great Spirit for life, for all that it brings to us of joy, knowledge, and wisdom. We pray that the consciousness of your love will be our companion forever, and may love, beauty, truth, and wisdom accompany all of us on the earth, so that we may overcome all bitterness, all war, all cruelty. O gracious Spirit, may the fragrance of the rose bathe the earth, that fear and suffering may cease, beauty and peace return. It all begins with ourself. Breathe in the light and become that peace. And we give thanks for the gift of this life and all the opportunities that lie ahead for each one of us. Amen. Well, Bob, you did a stellar job with just reading that little piece that I sent you ahead of time about this so-called global hypnosis. And I used that word because in looking up the word hypnosis, here is the definition: an induction of a state of consciousness in which a person loses the power of voluntary action and is responsive to suggestion or direction by another. That can be quite dangerous. That also can be a way of looking at what we've all been through. And many areas, and I'm thinking particularly of Canada, so-called lockdown, so-called restriction, And you look at the whole world, and this is a remarkable opportunity for the whole world. I often thought, you know, we as diverse people, diverse nations, all different cultures all over the world have suddenly been brought to a common place or a common goal, something that we're all experiencing, not only a unification of understanding, but an opportunity really for us to take a breath, be still, and ask, what is it that this opportunity is asking for us globally, and most of all individually, because each one of us make up the global. We can't look to somebody else. We can't look to another government. We can't look to our local lawmakers. None of this is relevant. What is relevant is what we do with the situation in which we find ourselves. So whether we're talking about where such a virus or pandemic came from is actually in the long run immaterial. It doesn't actually matter because we're stuck in it. So the most important thing is to use the time wisely, but also be very cognizant of that which we are being asked, that it is of truth, and that it is something that voluntarily we do, and we're not going against our innermost spiritual direction. And that's another tough one. I come from a family where with diverse views, from vaccinations to restrictions, and everybody's got an opinion. And it's very good for discussion. And I'm not going into my opinion because it's immaterial. What's important is how we each navigate through this. I think it would be helpful to look at that word also, initiation, a global initiation. What do we mean by that? I suppose we could say that an initiation is an entrance into something, but it's also an expanding awareness of light. That's what consciousness is, isn't it? Our awareness of light. And how we move through this and how we expand our own vision and our own light is going to be deeply individual. And what we've been provided for is a time to do this. It's very easy, isn't it, for humanity to point at someone and direct blame at the circumstances in which we find ourselves, whether it's this globally or whether it's us as individuals. Somebody's telling me I have to wear a mask, I have to do this, I have to do that. And it has brought up a streak of rebelliousness, which I totally and completely understand. And also, depending upon the part of the world in which we live, those restrictions are mightily different. Here in Texas, we hardly honestly know much difference. There has been a much more relaxed way of moving through this. It doesn't mean to say that there isn't controversy. It doesn't mean to say it's totally different from other parts of the world, but it's been a lot easier to navigate. So we've got this so-called virus, and as a body of humanity, we've actually attracted it, haven't we? There's a great law of attraction that goes throughout the world. And what is it and why is it that we have attracted this symptom, shall we say? At the basis of all life is thought. What we think we become, what we send out into the world affects it. That's why it's so important for us as individuals to look at ourselves and to be sure that what we're sending out in the world is going to be as pure and clear, kind, compassionate, and decent as we possibly can. And that's how we navigate our way out of difficulty, not by fighting it, not by controversy, but by standing firm for our own spiritual principles, but also being kind and aware of somebody else's point of view. We've all got different points of view. Even, you know, the closest ones to us will have a different point of view. Let's embrace it. Let's say, I understand. And then we begin to create something that is positive instead of creating conflict, which will always, you know, conflict separates us. Have you noticed the extraordinary efforts, and I have to use these words, by the dark side to separate? There has been such a stream of separation, families, older relatives who are in homes, and it has taken the great courage of individuals to try and navigate through that separation and to be very sure that we do everything we can to make sure it doesn't happen. One of the things that has been brought up, I think most especially, is a huge fear. It's actually fear that has caused so much separation. And that fear goes right up into governments who find their medical services may not be able to look after their people. It comes into personal fear of getting ill and maybe not getting well. But you know, far more than any virus, the most dangerous thing is actually fear. You know, all initiations, all the things that we are going to pass through in opening our consciousness or awareness will be eventually to lay to rest all our fears. Just to lay to rest all the fears that we have. That's a toughie. We've all got different things that we're afraid of. And in order to pass through an initiation or an opening, we have to overcome those fears. So what is fear? I suppose it arises because we are protecting ourselves. It's fear of lack of control over a situation, fear of apparently being alone, fear of sickness, disease, and on, and fear of being unable to discern the truth of a matter. You know, you and I are fed over the media, should we choose to listen, a constant stream of everything that is sensational, difficult, painful. They always say, my first husband was in the media, and he said it's all about ratings. The more you can bring a sensation or a disaster to the screen, the more you will attract people. One is hoping now that we're growing out of that and perhaps remove ourselves from something that is outside ourselves and created not for the good of the people, not for the good of the people. It's so rare you find a warm and loving and embracing and encouraging program or person who's going to speak in a public sense over the internet, over the television, over social media. And then it seems if anyone sparks up with something that's a little controversial, maybe they will be shut down. It's a crucial time in our history. It's a crucial time of discrimination. What is good, what is important, what is true, what is loving. And we cannot legislate anybody else, but we can legislate ourselves. We can bring that integrity into everything we do ourselves, in spite of what someone else might say. So what about truth? That's the amazing thing that we've experienced, isn't it, about truth? Everybody has got their own definition of what truth is or what they're hearing. What is truth? Well, you know, in my understanding, and I'm sure in most people's understanding, truth is actually not about opinion. It's not about what we think is true. It's not about what we hear might be true. Truth, to me, holds a very high standard indeed. For to speak truth actually is to speak love. That means every word we speak would carry that vibration of love. Goodness, kindness, compassion, wholeness in every sense. It certainly would never propagate fear amongst its people. It would never endanger or engender fear amongst people. It would only speak truth, which is love. You know, in the Bible, it'll tell us first there was the Word. What is the Word? It's the vibration of love. It's the vibration of truth. So I think there'd be a deathly silence over the entire television news if they really spoke truth, which would be love. Something we need to think about. And it's something I think for all of us individually, so much I know coming as a Gemini, talking is you chatter away and not always thinking as carefully as we might about not only what we're saying to each other, but the vibration we're sending out into the world through those words. I expect a lot of you will remember that little book called The Four Agreements. And the very first agreement that Luis put in was, be impeccable with your word. How vital that is, to be impeccable with our words. Again, we'd probably say very little because we'd be thinking about just how important it is to express ourselves in the highest sense that we possibly could. So this raises the bar to a very high standard and asks each one of us to try and live that truth. I think some of this separation or restriction has allowed us as individuals to go into the quiet spaces, to really think. And perhaps our communications are not as wide as they used to be. And so they're not seeing as many people in person. But what we're saying is very precious because we might not see a person for as long as we might wish. All of this whole understanding of initiation will come by just taking time to think. I know as a child, and it used to drive me nuts, my father would always say, think before you speak. And it's not always easy. One of the things that comes into our lives is emotion. And surely this has been a most emotional time for so many people. Not only the separations, but just the whole mass consciousness. If you can think of the whole world with rather a dark cloud over it, this is the mass thought consciousness. And those of us who might think a little more deeply can perhaps send a little bit of light through that dark cloud to everyone else. I know we do with those who make a practice of meditation or prayer. You take time to try and penetrate through the darkness. Once that darkness is dissipated through loving, clear, light, beautiful thought, we will begin to really initiate. That's what initiation is about. We'll begin to create something beautiful and lovely. A lot of people have come to expect their governments to tell them what to do. This is a two-edged sword, isn't it? We don't know always the motive. We also know that we've got very strongly to keep our own sensibilities of freedom of spirit. No one can take that away from us. But we should never look outside ourselves for how we should live, because we have all that knowledge, all that love right inside. And we've had many, many teachers over aeons of time who have all spoken truth. They've just said so simply, love one another. And it's the most difficult thing to do, isn't it? Always we must stand for principle and for our freedom, and as a people, while respecting another's belief, to be supportive of one another, and never to spread fear thoughts. And those fear thoughts undermine ourselves as well as everybody else. I think this would also lead us to our nation, and I can only speak for the United States, even though I don't particularly have an American accent. It's my country. It is said by many teachers that it would lead the world, its destiny eventually to lead the world in a deeply spiritual sense. And that leadership will come through its people. I'm sure some of you know the master whom we call the Master of the Rose, an aspect of him known as Saint Germain, who was very much instrumental in the forming of the United States and indeed many nations. One of the things paramount was that not only religious freedom, but freedom of the individual to be who they are and to honor the light within them. No doubt, as part of our collective education, we've become very aware that it's very easy for governing bodies of nations, just as when this nation, the United States, was formed, they got rid of this stranglehold of Britain. Well, we have to be very careful that a stranglehold doesn't happen again, wherever we live in the Americas. To remember that our lives are about we the people. We the people, what is going to be best for us as a group? And when we're doing something, saying something, how is this going to affect the collective family of humanity, rather than just the little I with its own sort of little desires? So as you and I, gradually emerge from restrictions, we're going to be left with a very strong bias that people have, individuals have, about what should be happening in the world. And we need to be, above all things, so careful never to take sides. It's easy to take a side, isn't it? Because that's our little opinion. Not to take sides, to listen and to appreciate, but never to let go our own innate truth. You know, we're all trying to learn that concept, aren't we, of brotherhood, which is very much indicative of this age of Aquarius. It is the age of the mind, and here we couldn't have anything more powerful than people's minds, people's expressions, and the concepts and conflicts that come from that. But if we look right into the depth of the mind of the heart, we're going to find this wonderful concept of brotherhood, wonderful concept of acceptance of each other, and all our wonderful individual quirks that make up the family of humanity. All over the world, there are wonderful cultural differences. And our teacher certainly speaks of the future where all of these cultural differences will be applauded, but will come together with one understanding of what this is all about. It's about brotherhood. It's about being decent to each other and accepting each other. This really is the greatest initiation that we're all facing right now, this opportunity at the beginning of this age. Now, Bob mentioned the seventh ray. As a great cycle of life comes to a close, usually about 24 to 26,000 years, the seventh ray, or the Aquarian age, comes into play, where all the, to use a very old-fashioned word, all the dross, all the scum, all the stuff that needs to be gotten rid of rises to the surface. And I think we're seeing that, or have seen that, for several decades, everything that is no longer useful is coming to the surface. And yes, we say, oh, isn't it awful? We want to get rid of it. Yes, we do, but it's a process. It's going to be a process. It rises to the surface to be discarded by our discrimination. That seventh ray is sometimes associated as a let's think of a higher soul development. So when this influence is coming into the world, it is asking the people of the world to rise, to come out of their old form and their old way of being, and to rise into something better, finer, and more beautiful. Part of human nature is to dominate. You know, you get some people together and somebody wants to be the most important, the most liked. Nations want to dominate other nations. This is very much what happens in an Aquarian age. It's both a scientific and a spiritual age. You've got these two aspects working together, a working that needs to bring some sort of balance together. So we need to be very much aware, yes, about the scientific developments, but also balanced with our spiritual developments. So one doesn't take over the other. I think we're all trying to balance ourselves, aren't we? Right the way through our life. There will always be something that's slightly out of whack that we're trying to bring into balance. Domination and superiority, that's what nations want. That's why they're wars, because they're frightened of each other. And so we want to dominate, so we'll feel safe. Gosh, how many eons of time have we been doing this? It's time to change, isn't it? It's time. We all have our work cut out for us, don't we? To look within, to strive and balance those two aspects of being, the intellect, the mind of the earth, and that wonderful mind in the heart, which loves. And it's always like walking the razor's edge, isn't it? Walking a razor's edge. There's always one ideal solution. And we've been told it by every world teacher throughout time, which is to love one another. And we can take that right down to our personal lives. And you know, one of the wise teachers in the way past said, we know you cannot love everybody you meet, but you can always be gracious and courteous. And that will engender eventually a love, because you'll be able to perceive the heart of that person, which is going to have the light, the Christ light in it, isn't it? So eventually, instead of judging each other by our outer coverings and the way someone speaks or walks or the body shapes or what they belong to or religion, just to let all that go. None of it matters. What matters is we're part of a collective whole, the soul of humanity. And what we do to each other, we do to ourselves. So we can stand up, can't we? Each of us, and be tested, which we're being tested right now. And to bring to each other something very beautiful. And it starts with our individuality. Starts with you and I. And I think Zoom is doing a fantastic job in that, bringing so many people of diverse walks of life together and realizing we're all working together for good. There are thousands of organizations all over the world doing things like co-creators, doing things like the White Eagle Lodge, all looking for a brotherhood of man / woman. It's an understanding of the higher self that we all contain. We all have it. And to look and to seek and to find that. And then an amazing thing will happen. There will be peace on earth. We may have to incarnate a few times and keep trying to help. but it will happen. And it's already the stage has been set yet again, so we can keep on, as White Eagle says, and so many other teachers, to keep on keeping on. I'd like to close with something from our teacher, who says so much of the old is now ready to be swept away and to make ready for the new. And each one of us may be a part of this, a revolution in education, religion, science, and true appreciation and understanding of an age of brotherhood, reflecting in every aspect of life. So perhaps we can close this little piece there, Bob, and keep on working together. Not a question.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Jane. This has been so delicious. And what, just picture Noelle and you and I sitting there in the retreat center library next to the fireplace, and you sharing your wisdom with us as we have so many times. It's feeling like that tonight for me. And I am sure there are a number of people that this conversation has brought them to wanting to share. Just this words that I circled, that you brought a new way of reflecting, a fresh way of reflecting for us. What is this opportunity asking us, and how is this an initiation? Just the global view here as well. I also appreciate you mentioning about America, and that some have said that we're to be the leaders in bringing forth a more spiritual way of interacting with each other, this experiment. Because oftentimes when we talk about the American experiment, we're really talking about governance or democracy or politics and things like that. But your perspective, I really appreciate of the experiment is an experiment in spirituality as well. And the out of many one is the opportunity for us, with wise people like the Dalai Lama saying it's Western women who will bring us forward into a new age of consciousness. I also appreciate, and I'd love to hear from others with comment, questions, reflections. I appreciate your comments about the truth. And I mean, we're aware of retreats that are being held now on just the subject of living in a post-truth world, and to try to navigate our way collectively and individually through the scum, to use your term, that has risen to the top. And it was always interesting for me because I remember Michael Bernard Beckwith in one of his messages said, oh, people talk about this is my truth and this is my truth, and they'll have a debate about, yes, but I'm going to share my truth now. And a recognition that sometimes that's filled with emotion and life experience, which is singular and that sort of thing. Of course, his punchline is, there aren't all those individual truths. There's one truth, and the truth is love, as you've underscored for us again. So I am just know that there are folks who would like to share or comment or question. You can do it in the chat. You can raise your hand on the visual, because I've got the gallery view here, or make a funny face if you'd like to join into this. This is our Thursday evening conversation, so let's make it that. Who would like to share first or chat with Jane?
And Bob Tex has his hand raised. Go ahead, Tex.
Tex, thank you, Noelle. Go ahead, Tex.
Thank you.
I'm not able to hear. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, it's a very humbling moment to be presencing with you, Jane Sorbi, the White Eagle Lodge, and everyone here present, because it's the presencing together in presence that generates certain synergy of spirit. As you speak, what comes to my mind is having read about the Wetiko, which the indigenous nations, tradition see as almost as a virus of the mind, which is the antithesis of love, which is greed. And humanity, unfortunately, in this quest for development, for modernization, and for materialism, whatever, has lost track. And beyond fear, I agree that fear is very significant, but there's this lack of, or not the lack of love in human relationships. The way we are living generally is undermining our true the truth of us, which would be loving people, collaborating in solidarity, mindful of others' flourishment rather than one's own material enrichment, and thinking of generations coming. Right now, it's just like winner take all, and we take the maximum. Anyway, I believe that the good thing of where we are now and what's going on in the world is that there is a certain awakening of consciousness, and to have meetings such like this, co-creators convergence, and I am thankful for cherished Barbara Marx Hubbard, whose legacy Bob and Noel are continuing so poignantly. But there are other initiatives also that inspire hope and inspire us into right action. So that
Absolutely, Tex.
so
Yeah.
that there's Unity Earth. I just wanted to mention there's Unity Earth and World Unity Week coming up, which there's this convergence of citizens globally. That's very hopeful. So thank you again.
Thank you, Tex. You're a mind reader, because we last year had Jane as part of World Unity Week. So maybe we'll be able to do that again this year. So
Yes.
Tex.
But Tex,
yeah.
I love what you said. You absolutely hit the nail on the head when you said a virus of the mind, because that's where all this battling is going on, isn't it, at the moment, is with the minds, with the intellects. And that's where our teacher particularly mentions this is a war on the mental plane. And so much can be done through work on the heart. So bless you for bringing that up. It absolutely is.
Thank you, Tex. And also for those of you that don't have the chat called up, you might want to click in the bottom tray there for the chat. Tex also shared a reference of an article on the subject of COVID-19 as a symbol of a much deeper infection. So thank you so much, Tex. Karen? Whoops, did she just pop away?
I'm here. Thank you.
There you are.
Thanks, Tex. And Jane, everything that you were sharing, I'm in a bit of awe. I'm surprised and not surprised, of course, the way universe works. I loved what you said about the initiation and bringing light. And I know that for me in my personal life that I've had a few initiations, and I imagine many of us are with relationships, whether they're family or close friends or neighbors. And it's been this whole piece on truth and, willingness. What I'm finding is that there's so much fear and people are so uncertain which way to turn or to believe with all these different information pieces coming at them. Their grounding is lost. And when we lose our grounding, we're just sinking more deep into fear. So for me personally, I've just watched people who I've been around for so long and close to not be able to come together and communicate. And I mean, I know, like, thanks to co-creators convergence and outlets such as this, I've just taken this pause and step back and say, I don't know if I wrote it down, but you said something like, when we're about the truth, I can only take care of my side and my integrity. And I can offer like, let's communicate. There's been a misunderstanding. Let's talk this through. Yet I can't make somebody talk. And even though, because of the work I do, I'm aware that when somebody's, whatever they're in, it hurts just sometimes just to have somebody so close not be able, like, I found myself just getting hurt, like, my integrity, how come we're not talking, like, where'd you go? And so I'm seeing this play out with clients telling me this, coming to me in my own life, in my friends talking about it. And then here you actually just, shared precisely, it's just all these different microcosms of what's playing out worldwide.
Yes. Are you in a counseling capacity, Karen?
I am coaching. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So it brings up a great deal. It's a wonderful job to have, though. You can help. You can help. This is all part of it. Yes.
Yeah.
So a great gift. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you. Thank you. Flo, I think you had your hand up next, and whoever would like to queue up, you can use the hand raise in the participant column or just wave at us. Go ahead, Flo.
I was just recalling when we did the 12 agreements and how speaking the truth with compassion was one of the hardest agreements and difficult to get across to people sometimes. And since, I don't know when we did that, Bob, maybe 3 years ago. And I've been trying to incorporate it into my life. And I am a natural lover, give people benefit of the doubt and try to put it out there as much as I can. Now I realize more that there's more to truth than my truth. And that just like facets of a crystal, if you're looking at it from a different angle, the truth can be a little different. And so as I'm speaking my truth, I have to, with love, realize that there's more that someone else may have too. And it's wonderful to be loving and caring to people. And then if they're not on the same level, sometimes it's difficult. And what you would think would be an easy, natural, flowing, love, love, love. I've been all about the love and the peace for a long time, but when it comes down to things, it's not always that easy. And sometimes you just have to back away and send the love from afar. And that's my goal and my step is to be more compassionate right now. I'm having some problems with some family issues. So I just keep trying to send the love and not get caught up in he's right, she's right, I'm right, they're right, but just keep sending the love and keep sending the love. And sometimes it bounces right back to me. But that's all I wanted to say. It's something that sounds easy. That's not always easy.
No, but it's the perfect solution, isn't it, Flo? It's the answer to everything, because eventually that light will dispel the darkness, whatever it is. The thing is to be able to do it without sort of judgment. That's the toughie.
Right. Well, in realizing that, I could be the wrong one, and just depending where you're looking at something from.
Yes, yes.
So, yes. So I love you all and I thank you for this conversation.
Thank you, Flo. Yes, and Flo is referring to the 12 Revolutionary Agreements, a book by Marian Head. And speaking my truth with compassion is one of those 12 agreements. And like you said, speaking my truth with compassion is one thing, and sometimes having to back away and speak with non-words, just sending love is speaking with non-words. And as not to let the words get in the way of that agreement being fulfilled. So thank you. Thank you very much. Others who would like to jump into the conversation, please.
All right, well, I won't be shy. Bob?
You won't
hear
be
me?
shy?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Okay. Okay. There's the surprise. Thank you. Don't be shy.
Okay, I want to go back to your comment, and this is just a intellectual thing, I guess. But what is this about Saint Germain and the formation of the United States? That's new to me.
Ah, well, that's a long story. Well, we can make it very short. I will say that there is a piece written, which is written all over the place, as well as by the person who founded the White Eagle Lodge. But this is an old story about the professor. Now, when the signing was about to happen in the formation of the United States, everybody was evidently filled with fear, because this was obviously abject treason. People were going to be killed. They could lose. In fact, so many of them did, even after the signing, lose property, family. They're putting their whole lives at risk. So we are told that at the back of the room, where everybody was ready to sign, there stood up this elderly professor who spoke, and I wish I had the words in front of me, but it's amazing words that about the freedom and the future of the United States. Well, it wasn't called United States. And he so inspired the whole group that literally they went up and signed one after another. And that is, or was, an aspect of the master, Saint Germain, who is very much instrumental in the forming of nations, beginnings of nations. And if one is aware of, we talk about aspects, just as Noel, you and I have aspects of our many incarnations and aspects of who we've been. We certainly can't pin ourselves down to one little Jane and one little Noel. It's an aspect of the greater soul. But one of his incarnations was, in fact, we're told the last one, of Francis Bacon, who was the Lord High Chancellor under Elizabeth I in England. And he funded what was known then the Virginia Company. And this is very much history. And the Virginia Company was the beginning of the colonization of the United States, the beginning of the nation, when the first people began to come over. So this essence of the master is very strong in this nation. So if you would like, at some point, I'll send you the whole story, but you can look it up on the internet. It's that open. You can look it up. You could put the professor at the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and I bet you'll find it come up and you can read it. If not, let me know.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. As you were telling the story, I'm remembering bits and pieces of it, maybe from an earlier conversation.
Yes.
So Jane, along that same line, would you share a little bit more about, so if there was spiritual inspiration being spoken from the back of the room, at that moment in this country's history. Say a little bit more about what you were referring to in a leader of spirituality going forward. I assume it's related to that, those comments by him or by Saint Germain.
You're talking about the nation?
About the nation, but particularly at the note that I wrote, what I'm recalling that you said was that America would be a leader in spirituality for the planet or something to that effect. And
well, for the, yes, but let's look at ourselves also. This is to come. We obviously have a tremendous amount to work our way through, but the essence or the destiny, and you can find many books written on the destiny of the United States, was set, as our teacher White Eagle says, aeons ago. The destiny of this nation was to be in this true, oh gosh, how can you put it? Leading in a manner of brotherhood. Now we can see how far away we are from that at the moment. However, the spirit of the people is huge. The spirit of the average person is wonderful. And most people don't have, they have a wonderful idealistic view of how this nation should be. And it is this spirit that you can feel. It is this spirit that will eventually form what is to come. And you know, we look at time frames, thinking of the golden age. We understand probably about 2,000 years ahead. So we've got a little bit of time to keep working at it. But yes, actually the words spoken were that America would be the mouthpiece for the Brotherhood of Light.
Piece for what?
Mouthpiece for the Brotherhood of Light.
So
that's pretty
Brotherhood of Light.
amazing, and that's pretty wonderful. So it's something obviously we're all working towards in our individual self as a collective nation. And no doubt many of us will come down again and get on with it and try and keep pushing this until it eventually evolves, which it will eventually.
I really appreciate that further expansion of it, because it certainly feels so painful in this moment right now when we have whether it's democracy and politics and all the jibber jabber that goes on about those that believe this country is all about one particular religion or one particular branch of, quote, religions. And that's infiltrated into, you know, laws and like you said, you can't regulate, you have to regulate yourself, or you have to legislate yourself. But in the legislatures, both in states and, I mean, in Tennessee, there's now a perpetual bill introduced to make the Bible the official book of the state. And so it seems like we're a long way from attaining that moment. But there are many others that also speak of this. Stephen Dinan, who is the founder and CEO of the Shift Network, wrote a book in 2016 called Sacred America, Sacred World. And the theme of it was just that, is that this experiment was an experiment of spirituality, experiment of consciousness and opportunity. Thank you.
Yes, and it's always, isn't it, darkest before the dawn.
It is.
Don't let's get discouraged.
And it's,
you know, we can find everything that is wrong, but if we all start looking at everything that is right, we're going to expand that.
indeed.
And we're going to make it real. This is a whole world of illusion and thought. So we can make changes, constant changes.
Indeed.
By starting with ourselves.
Who next?
Well, I think there's a lot of folks here from the Co-Creators Convergence, and you know, you talked about your teacher, and a lot of them probably would like a little bit more background on White Eagle.
Yes.
Do I see any head nods on that?
Yeah, I've got a couple of head nods.
Well, I suppose, you know, obviously since the beginning of time, there's come to the earth many, many, many different teachers. The crowning teacher that we know within our Christianity, within our, has been the Master Jesus. But as we all know, Jesus didn't come in as a Christian. He came in as a teacher to teach love. And so we all have that stream of understanding. And wherever we are in the world, there will have been, whether you're Buddhist or whether you follow the teachings of Krishna, whether you're Hindu, whatever it is, each teacher has brought to the earth light and love and a way of living. And so in a small way, we have this very quiet essence of understanding brought through a very simple woman in the 1920s and 30s, a mystical teaching. And by mystical, I mean a teaching that teaches the way of the heart, the way of understanding through the heart. The teachings are vast. There are thousands of them, not all in publication. And like every teacher or master, they will come in a particular dress. And so a lot of people say, well, why would he come as a Native American? We understand that an aspect of this particular teacher was very instrumental in the forming of the Iroquois nations in the Americas. In other words, again, bringing people together. So in forming this, we're given a very simple understanding of the true ancient Native Americans who lived really as part of the earth. There was no word for religion. There was an understanding that you lived within the rhythms of Mother Earth. You had this understanding of the brotherhood of all life. And so this is the essence that this teacher that we call White Eagle, which actually we must remember what that White Eagle is. The White Eagle is the symbol of St. John. It's also the symbol of the soul rising to the light. So getting past personality, you look that it's very much a symbol for the Aquarian age, the White Eagle, so that we rise, that we bring our soul up into the light from the darkness. We rise with wings of light. Just as you look at the ancient Sphinx, which is half man, half beast, again, you've got always the generation of humankind coming out of its material humanness into its divinity. So I've wandered a little bit off, but our particular teacher, of which we have great affection, comes with absolutely no lauds and applauds. Every master that comes is infinitely humble, infinitely sincere, infinitely loving, and just once again lays out the truth that isn't new, and I'm talking spiritual truth, the basic laws of living. They lay it out, and here it is for another generation to see if it will help. And so we continue. And this particular aspect is one that is very healing, is very central to this particular work, spiritual healing through color, through an understanding of that sound produces color, and in its essence produces perfume, taught by Pythagoras. So very much it is a mystical path, and it never would coerce, it never would preach, it simply is there to be found. As with all great streams, as White Eagle says himself, we bring just a facet of the truth, and every stream or religion brings a facet, and it draws those who have been familiar perhaps with it over time, and you are drawn always to your spiritual family, just as the co-creators has created a family. And so we come together as families, and with a true spiritual family, you recognize every other. So really, White Eagle is, as I say, brought in this teaching through Grace Cook, who we affectionately call Minesta, which means mother. And there are books, there are inner teachings, which are online, and there are also what we call brotherhood teachings, which are teachings given to the central core of this work, of those who particularly work very focused with the light. So all of it, like any center, it has its outer face, and it also has its inner face for those who seek and find. So I hope that's vaguely helpful, Bob.
I think that was fabulous. And
Yes.
I think that's opened up a lot. I just have a few samplings here. You know, we visited there many times. Some of you might recognize some of these. I love these little booklets that White Eagle has. This one is called Prayer in the New Age. I don't know if you can see that one.
Of course, you would hold up something that's now out of print.
I'm going to auction it off. Okay, I have more. The source of all of our strength. Oh, I love this one. Okay, treasures of the master within. And of course, this one was really, really popular. A lot of people found out about White Eagle through this book, The Quiet Mind. And this is just a sampling. And I did put in the chat there a link to whiteeagleteachings.org. And Jane, isn't that where they've
That's where the inner
cataloged?
teachings are. Yes.
Yeah, so they've
Yeah.
really cataloged a lot of the teachings there, and they are beautiful teachings. And as long as no one else is putting their hand up, you mentioned about the White Eagle connection with the Iroquois. Is that correct?
Yes. 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 The
That's
Peace Bringer. Have you ever read? There's a I don't know whether it's a book. It's called The Peace Bringer, and it's in Iroquois history. I'm trying to think of the book that would be most helpful. Maybe if there are any White Eagle people, they might remember. I have it, and I'll have to. I'm not going to go searching in my bookshelves right now. But it's about it's a legend of we would consider truth, where the truth was brought to the tribes to stop them warring together. And so it started off with the 5 nations of the Iroquois, and then eventually it became the 6 nations. And that survived for many, many years, I think hundreds of years. But what is so interesting about that culture within the Iroquois, every time there was a rule or a decision or a law or a conflict or something to understand, it always went finally to the women, the elders of the tribe, the women. So it's interesting, isn't it, that that was very much present then, and we're having to learn it all over again. We'll also find a preamble in the United Nations that has been drawn from the Iroquois preamble of their formation of their nations. So it's all wonderfully connected very much with America.
right. And Tex just put into the chat there, and I was going to echo this. Isn't it said that the Iroquois Confederacy inspired the U.S. Constitution?
Yes, it did. They just left out the bit with the women.
The Iroquois or the new nation?
No, I'm just kidding. But that, yes, it was very much the Constitution and into the United Nations. It's also mentioned because the founders of our nation looked to see, gosh, these people have managed to live in peace by sorting out their differences peacefully. So it was a wonderful legacy, wasn't it, to not only for this nation, but also for our little group,
Yeah.
on peace and bringing people together.
Great
Right.
legacy for the Constitution, with the exception of that little part about the women.
I was just kidding when I said that. I just remember that it's in the group that always the final decision, even the decision about who would be chief, went to the women last. They made the final decision.
I don't hold it as being a thing of humor. I have it as, and to me, it's a way of, it's a part of the destiny that we're now traveling, is that omission, is a part of the destiny we're now traveling. Wow.
Oh.
Wow. Thank you, Noelle, and thank you for bringing some of the books and whatnot. The in the chat, again, for those of you that might not be familiar with saving the chat, you can call up the chat from the bottom tray, go to the very bottom of the chat where you might put your own chat in it, and there are 3 dots to the right. You can click on that, it will say Save Chat, which will then save the chat and some of the resources that we've put in there about White Eagle Lodge, as well as Co-Creators Convergence and the World Unity Week. It will save it onto your computer in a folder that it will construct automatically called Zoom with today's date on it. So you have all those references. So this has just been a wonderful, wonderful conversation.
So is there anyone else that wants to comment or ask a question? This is very precious time. Let's go with Lisa first and have a new person jump in.
Gosh, so much. So I have a massage therapy practice that's been my profession for 26 years. And so I just completely shut down during the pandemic. And fortunately, I didn't have to work. So it's been a choice to just avoid the whole thing, just not get into any, and now so every time I would go to open, something else would happen, or a new thing, and so now so I'm fully vaxxed, and so now I'm getting calls so I've opened up to people I know, and not even charging money. It's like I'm not even like, I don't want to be on the radar yet, and people are calling me and saying, well, I'm fully vaxxed, come on, and I'm like, I don't know them and what their situation is. And part of me is like, oh, I'm living in fear. And part of me is like, no, my business is going to change, my practice. And this is time for me to really think about, who do I want to touch? How do I want to touch them? Yeah, so this is that pondering, thinking time for me as well. Part of it is fear, I think. Like, I just don't feel like like you were saying, discerning what's really going on,
Yes.
what's really going on. And I grew up with a scientist research father. His specialty was hookworms. He was the world expert on hookworms for a while. And so I grew up with guys like my dad, and so you've got Peter Hotez, who's on CNN all the time. I know this guy, like, he came to our house for dinner, and so to me, that was a big truth, that science research modality. I mean, it was even when I went to massage school, goodness gracious, what was it? I was going all woo-woo before we know what woo-woo was, but why don't you become a physical therapist? No, Dad, that's just like, it's not doing it for me. There's this whole thing massage does that's different than PT. And he just didn't get it, especially being an Ivy League professor and having gone to Penn as a faculty brat, I didn't sort of fit the mold. Why was I going to massage school after I graduated from Penn? But so this was my path, that there was more. I knew there was more than muscles, bones,
Yes.
And since then, I've gone into energy and work and tuning forks and all kinds of things that, I never told him about. If he only knew. Well, now he knows because he's in beyond. But so I don't know where I'm going with this has given me time also to really look at other things like joining this group or doing these morning meditations, really thinking about and back to what this group is about. What is my gift? Maybe it's not about massage anymore. Maybe there's something else for me to do. And I've always been very kinesthetic, very in the body. Like that is how I feel things. And so maybe this really is an opportunity to connect with people. And this whole Zoom thing was really challenging for me at first. Like I didn't get it. Like I don't feel you through the screen, you know. Like I want like touch people through the screen. And so it's changed. I've adapted. And so I'm just sort of, it's an interesting space for me. And I feel like I'm going to go at my own pace and I'll reopen when I want in whatever. And so as you were saying, sort of self-regulate. I mean, there are laws about how I practice massage or whatever, what I have to do and can't do. And but
what state are you in? I forgot.
Alabama.
Alabama, that's right. Yes, so maybe the
So
rules.
actually right now they've made a law where you cannot deny service to someone based on their vax status. So
that's a relief.
well, I don't know. I'm still kind of pondering like what. So as a healthcare worker, it is not a HIPAA violation. I can't actually say what's your medical history. Have you had COVID? Have you been, as a medical history question and in terms of how I would give you treatment, but I can't deny service for that.
And always, I think you'll go with what's in your heart because, anybody who works with the body has got an extraordinary sensitivity and perhaps you'll go even deeper into that when whether it's touch or not, whether you'll be able to work at a different level. But the wonderful thing is it's all opening up and time to think about it.
Yes, it's really an opportunity.
We're going to wrap up in moments, but Tex, I didn't know if you had something short you wanted to share as a conclusion, and then we'll give our great and heartfelt thanks to Jane for the evening.
Very good. Thank you very much. I was writing it. Now, after all that's been said about the Iroquois Confederacy, the formation of the US, the role of St. Germain, I wanted to appeal to us here, presencing in presence, capital P, of the Great Spirit, as Sister Jane has said, that we have a thought for all peoples all over the planet who are struggling in these times to have a sense of unity, be it as societies or even globally, and that all peoples may have the spiritual guidance that we may forge ahead towards a better future for everyone, for all generations in the future, and at the same time mindful of ecological tribability of the planet.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Tex. It feels like a closing prayer. I appreciate very much.
Beautiful.
Jane, if you would like to, if you have any final reflections, we would appreciate those, and then we will move solemnly and sacredly into the evening.
I think he's said it all, but I've got a little end of a prayer that I've had for years, just tucked in a book that I've just found. And it simply says, teach me to walk the soft earth, a relative to all that lives. Sweeten my heart, fill me with light, give me the strength to understand, the eyes to see, help me, For without you, I am as nothing. Fetchy yellow, and that's from Black Elk. And so we would echo those words. Without you, I am nothing. So the light shines in us all. God bless.
Join us next week, June 3rd, for an evening of playful fun and reflection with Lisa and Shad as we do a collage for our co-creative soul. See you then.